what I loved about the certainty you gave us, from a distance over media was I just went, we can handle this. We don't need to outsource any of this. I think literally your message said you can leave all that stuff in the car park. And so that was my turning point. That was like this soul-shifting finding of purpose.
Yeah. All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, the one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jackie Jacobowitz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatric, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go. Well, Dr. Tim, I would say welcome to the United States, but you've been here a couple of hot minutes here, at least a couple of days on this trip. So thank you for jumping into the Hope Dealer studio and jamming with us. So what we want to do, as always, because we were talking ahead of time, we're so excited. I feel like my biggest weakness is ever slowing down to look into the past, because I'm so obsessed with the future. I just want to capture this opportunity that we'll talk all about with nervous system focused family chiropractic. Get after today, get after tomorrow. But what's going to help a lot of chiropractors get with us in that mission and vision is if they know that we started in these different places too, right? With different directions. So if you go back to chiropractic school, starting to practice, I only know kind of its recent history to where it is. So what is its origination chiropractic history and yours?
Yeah, so I found chiropractic school once I was at university. I didn't grow up with chiropractic. I started studying exercise nutrition at university. I always wanted to work with human performance. I always wanted to help maybe athletes be better, or work with the potential of performance that we have as humans. So I was in that kind of exercise physiology, nutrition space. For some reason, I went along to a careers evening in that first year of university, and Dr. Phil McMaster from the New Zealand College was there. And that was a massive turning point.
Say no more, right?
Yeah.
Truly, the man's a
penny drop moment. Mm-hmm. So I decided at that point to head up to the New Zealand College, study up there, because I grew up in New Zealand. I didn't get my first adjustment until week one.
For sure.
First year camp, Dr. Brian Kelly, first adjustment. So that was really cool.
So at that stage, the fire, the excitement that only Dr. Phil and New Zealand sort of people can bring, it had such a pull on you. You literally just didn't get adjusted. That's probably quite a few months in time, or years even.
Yeah, so that was probably 10 to 12 months out from when I actually got to college, started. But I remember the first day, first class, I was like, this is where I belong.
Awesome.
I've found it. Interestingly, I actually didn't. I did that first year, and for a few personal reasons and other things, I actually then left chiropractic for a few years, went back, completed the other degree, for a real brief hot minute, romanticized the idea of studying medicine. So I went hard at getting the grades for that and all of that. Luckily, I changed my mind on that.
Lucky for us too, truly, dude.
But so I sort of did that first year, left for a few years, finished a degree, traveled, came back to chiropractic. So
if we just, we're recording, you're here training with us in the States, and probably for whatever percentage, a lot of people in United States, Canada, they're going to listen to this. So that may seem kind of out of the ordinary, but I think the way you grew up and where you grew up in that season of life, taking some travel, taking some time to do that that's how you go roll, right?
Yeah.
And cool.
I mean, I was 20
years 100%.
old. So it's a little different than having to do a 4-year or 3-year bachelor's here.
You get kind of locked into
and then going in when I guess you're a little bit more mature, you've had more life experience. But second time around, it was the time for me. So yeah, streamed back into second year, finish off the degree. Met my now wife, Casey, who started her studies in Australia, finished them in New Zealand.
So if you hadn't taken left and come back center, the timing wouldn't have landed. That's amazing. That's God. Okay, awesome.
So we made the decision to move back to Australia after graduating. We moved down to South Australia, Adelaide, which is where the new Australian college is, which got its blueprint from the New Zealand college. Yep. So it's a bit of a chiropractic stronghold in Australia.
So exciting.
And it's a special place to us. We named our now second daughter Adelaide, Addie. So, we did a couple years there before the opportunity came up to move back to Queensland, the Sunshine Coast, where Casey grew up.
Are you guys running a practice down in Adelaide, or are you working for it?
Just associateships.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so which we both still have great, strong relationships with those.
Nervous system focused, subluxation based?
On your scale, on your spectrum, look, yes.
Appreciate
Bottom
that
line,
answer.
yes.
Yeah,
Vitalistic.
yeah.
I mean, we still spoke about the spine.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah.
There's a few DGen models on the wall, taking X-rays, but
osteophyte here or there, kind of poking around. Okay, that's funny.
It was. I mean, Casey worked with one of the guys who started the Adelaide College.
Beautiful.
So did I. Mario had a bit to do with that as well. So
beautiful.
Then we moved back to the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, which is kind of like, the Florida of Australia, which is where Casey grew up. An opportunity came up to buy an existing practice that was doing great. I actually started out in partnership with my best mate. So he was kind of like a silent partner. We bought this practice. Mm-hmm. Within the first couple of years, we figured out that it just made more sense for me to buy him out. And so Casey and I sort of took over sole ownership of that. And that was, previous to finding PX, that was a great practice.
Yeah, just it was.
It was, I guess, what I would term general practice. Mm-hmm. I was a chiropractic GP. Yeah. We were just, seeing probably 80% adults, 85%, with a wellness focus, get people onto lifetime care if we could inspire them to do so. It was good fun.
Yeah.
It's going well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've always, let's just grab this part of it too, because we're going to talk both components and actually limiting it to two categories is too limiting, but it also keeps it simple for us in this construct and for people to be listening and learning. So we're going to get into the clinical differences. I definitely want to talk about like how obsessed you become in the best way with the clinical delivery, which is where PX really starts, diving deep into the science, diving deep into the clinical application, care planning, everything else. But you guys you really enjoy the business side. You really enjoy and are skilled at and experienced at the practice building side. So if we just grab that lane for a second, even before we get to PX and we start adding into that spot, where did you guys go and get mentored? You love to learn. I mean, you got on a plane. You just came to Chicago in January, bro. So you are an eternal for 4 nights. So you are a learner among you're all out front there with learning. So practice building, marketing, getting a team, because you had a high volume, successful practice. What do you feel like was really pivotal for you guys to get to that good place before? Because it was a great practice. It's a great practice.
Yeah. So the guy who we bought the practice off, Dr. Todd, shout out to Todd, who's down in Florida here now. He moved back to the US after a stint in Australia with his beautiful girls. He had just stepped into the space of learning from Dr. Brad Glowacki.
Got it. That's right. Yeah.
He's a great friend and mentor and a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
And so we kind of jumped on that train.
Yeah.
And guided by, solid structure through scripts and, clinical structure, structure your exams this way, your day 2 this way, your progress assessments this frequently,
very black and white.
Yeah. So we, at the time that made a lot of sense to me. And we, bought the practice right as COVID kicked off, 2020.
That's right.
So it had dived a bit from when we looked at the prospectus, but we still, like a lot of great vitalistic practices, thrived through that.
For sure.
And we took it up from sort of 200 visits a week to, very quickly up over 300 towards 400. So had a lot of fun doing
dude.
It was
and you're
profitable.
ridiculous. It's profitable. It's predictable. It's successful. It's impactful. Even though it's the more spinal, X-ray, scripted, structured kind of chiropractic, it absolutely lights people's lives on fire because these adults do have freaking reverse cervical curves and degeneration, which is coming from a depleted nervous system. So you get into the conversation. Sure. All we're going to do is literally just kind of change the sequence of where we put this stuff, what comes first and what comes second. And so it really, really was successful. Let me ask you this for you and Casey. I know how close you guys are. I know how much, shout out to Casey, by the way, too. And I know how much she is just enthralled and in love with chiropractic, its philosophy, its delivery. And I know how much you were in this clinic. You bought this clinic. So you're talking about it at dinner. You're talking about it on the weekend. So was there, I know what you mean. You're good at turning it off too. But it's who you are. So I guess I'm setting that up to ask this question. Did you guys, even as the numbers and the clinic was successful, prior to PX, I'm going to ask you to kind of just think about this season in time. Did you at all feel like something was missing? Chiropractically?
No.
Cool.
I felt fulfilled at the time. Yeah. And the business was very much mine. Casey had very little to do with it as a conscious choice.
For sure.
She was happy working in another practice. She's always had a pull towards peds, perinatal, prenatal. So she was working in a practice that worked that way, SOT technique based. And it was kind of like the business was mine to handle. And so honestly, we didn't talk about it that much.
Because you're both grooving.
At that point.
Because you're grooving. It's working.
So I was happy where I was until I wasn't, and then I kind of started to seek the other stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And as it was, I might have had a little maybe momentum in the pediatric direction when God sent me Mr. Oliver. And so that's where you were when Miss Sage arrived,
that's the interesting thing. I never had a major interest. I know I said back at the start of the interview that I wanted to work with human potential and potentially athletes. But as I got through chiropractic, I got less and less worried about wanting to, let's say, specialize in an area or niche down. And I was just happy to I'll adjust anybody.
Yeah.
I like adjusting kids with the basic skill set I had. And so I never had that desire to serve a niche population like Casey did. And even once Sage came along with that traumatic birth, which, for all intents and purposes, and this conversation was pretty similar to Oliver's.
Yes.
Just for your audience, his story. It was pretty hectic. It was pretty full on. And even that didn't steer me towards I need to be a peds chiro. I need to know how to help her. I felt so supported by our network, our family, our colleagues, our mentors. That was the first time I ever reached out to you.
Facebook Messenger, absolutely.
And as you do, you got back to me back and forth a little bit, but I was super well supported by chiropractors closer to home.
Yeah.
And we got Sage through the storm then and, far exceeded the prognoses from hospital and all of that. And it wasn't until,
that's right,
12 months ago, Easter, 10 months ago. Less than that. 8 months ago. April.
Yeah. Is it really just 8 months that this is?
It was Easter last year.
Holy moly.
We're in January right now. So it wasn't until the seizures started.
Yeah.
And even then, for that first 8 weeks or so of these every 9 to 14 days, these episodes happening with Sage, dude, it wasn't until I reached out to you and got the clarity, and maybe this is where the conversation is going, the clarity, the conviction, the certainty from you when you sent us to get scans and you interpreted them for us. And to me, that was just like this steady ground I could walk onto.
Yeah.
And there was interestingly, there was some embarrassment, some shame around, because with Sage, those episodes or seizures surprised us because we're like, she's a chiro kid. She's been doing well. She gets adjusted every week, if not more. We were kind of like, we got the chiro thing covered. So we started to look at, the other rungs of the
frankincense.
pyramid.
We 100%.
went to essential oils and supplements and, kinesiology, lasers, OTP.
Man, dude.
We went full circle, and for 8 or 10 weeks,
spun your tires.
And then what I loved about the certainty you gave us, from a distance over media, was I just went, we can handle this. We don't need to outsource any of this. I think literally your message said you can leave all that stuff in the car park. And so that was my turning point. That was like this soul-shifting finding of purpose, which is just so huge to look at in the rearview mirror now and go, far out. 2024 was a big year because it's like I found my purpose. And I didn't feel purposeless or drifting before that.
Totally. Like, and I think that's why it's so important that we got into this entire conversation, because I think it's really easy. I'm going to call it easy. And in contrast to this path, it's easy actually to be like super struggling and then something pulls you out of it. It's actually harder to really just freaking find another gear and go 180 miles per hour in a new direction when the direction you're already going is working really, really well, right? Especially from a chiropractic, because practice and business and none of these things are easy. And so you definitely don't, all of us exist with this. Once it gets good, like I better not rock the boat, right? But Sage is a little bit of a boat rocker, right? And that is literally her style. So, okay, this word's right here. We got the chiro part covered. Well, I'm going to insert another story that is the exact same context here. So Dr. Matt, who, you've now grown close to too, and is, you just know, is just the top.
I'm wearing this hat.
Yeah.
It's still warming up from the run.
From the run he took you on this morning. Yeah. So that part of his life, I may not, say, but the nervous system part, the man is the best of the best. So where I'm going with this is, in his early years, as we're just training him in here and he's all in, the coolest thing about Dr. Matt's story is he grew up insular, meaning he was the dad of a perfect storm kiddo. So he came through PwC, nervous system focused chiropractic, high level clinical certainty, high level clinical communication. Don't worry about all the bells and whistles of primitive reflexes and essential oils and everything else. Like, chiropractic will get this job done. He goes to school, comes right back. Interns, we keep him in this lane, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, for Matt's understanding about how the rest of chiropractic would operate in your shoes as Sage's dad and as my shoes as Oliver's dad, he only knew, you're going to go ballistic on chiropractic, right? And he went and he did a talk for, I can't remember if it was Michigan or Minnesota or whatever, but he was on the docket with all the other pediatric chiropractic, rock star speaking people in this country anyways. And he called me that night on his drive home and he said, I never knew what you were talking about until now. Meaning, like, he did know, but he actually got full clarity, because he said, for 4 presenters in a row before me, they basically stood up and said, hey, you guys, you're already chiropractors. You got that part covered. Yeah. Just do chiropractic for your patients. And then this person was all about primitive reflexes, and this person was selling lasers, and this person was selling microbiome detox kits, right? And these are chiropractors who basically just said, but what nobody, and Matt said, I get it now when you keep talking about staying narrow so you can go deep instead of going wide so you don't go deep on anything. And we unknowingly make the mistake that because we're chiropractors, for kids, we already just have this depth of delivery in chiropractic. And a really tough case like seizures, and a really tough case in your head and your heart, like Sage and Oliver will do, is they go, there's depth missing here. Then you find out there's depth for all the other cases. Then you find out there's depth for your practice, right? So, okay. So that became, what's crazy how God works? We're in here doing the studio. I think I shot that video in here and then sent it over, didn't I? You guys went and got scanned and did that? Okay, awesome. What a blessing I've had I just love your girls, love your family, and to be able to use technology. I think we're in a cool place where we can use technology to literally reach across oceans and be able to help each other as chiro homies, which is the chiropractic family really matters to me, that we do that for each other. Okay, so how is that only 8 months? Because
it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because now let's go into
a special shout out to my team. My team,
they're ballers.
Goodness, they've been, as you said to me, I've grown a gritty team because it's like Maggie was talking about at Brick Builders yesterday, the role of a visionary versus an integrator, and the visionary just being like charging forward and like not really looking back over their shoulder. Like my team are in the background just holding scanners like, what? You know, it's like
you want to do a 72-visit care plan without a script? Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk from the heart and tell them the truth.
We're scanning now. We're seeing kids. We're going to be 50% peds by July next year. Like, and look, their hearts are all in. They're all parents of
that is the cheat code with pediatrics. You're not asking them to go screaming into the other direction for, I don't know, software sales. Heck, I don't even know what else would fill that spot. But it is. That's our cheat code with kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So it started with just a conviction and mentality from you and Casey to say this practice must go in this direction, right? Yeah. What would you say if we try and slow, because it's been nothing but speed of implementation, speed of impact for you guys. You are now blowing up on the pediatric front, the perfect storm front, the clinic front. If we start to kind of slow down and go, what would you say was step one? Where do you guys feel like if we were to even maybe try and go to that first 30, 60, 90 days, you get signed up for PX, you're going through the training. What did you feel like you needed to shift and change first within the practice?
Well, step one was the absolute conviction and clarity.
Okay.
And it's like, yes, it's not like, oh, let's give this a try. Let's kind of like dip our toes and, you know, maybe we'll pay for the content for a month and see how it goes.
Yeah.
It was like, and, you know, grateful for the fact that we had a challenge so close to home that made it so easy to have that conviction.
But that is what captures everybody. That is where we start. So if I can pull on that for a second, buddy, before we go to step two, I really don't know. Like, what was it within the videos, the membership? What do you feel like was the conviction creation? What was the spark or the catalyst that really gave you that?
Well, that came before. That came in the interaction with you when. To go back a step, at New Zealand College where I studied, like I'm not unfamiliar with the Insight Scanner. We were blessed to have it as part of our curriculum, and we used it. But we used it at a
different level.
A different level. It was, there's color. RED would maybe be the depth of explanation, and as cocky university students, we kind of went, God, this thing's a bit of a joke, isn't it?
Because we're students.
I kind of, the clinic I bought from Dr. Todd had an Insight Scanner in it, and I sold it.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, all right. Because that was just your context with it at that time. Because you are someone. For a while, but there's two lessons in one here. The same thing we're talking about now actually mashes together. You're at your best when you go into something all in. You're a full depth. Casey's a full depth, a full commitment. You're a all in, which is why we get along so well, because you're not a half-asser, right? You're an all in sort of person. So that tool, the way you were taught to use it, it didn't open up a path for all in, right? It was kind of just another thing. And so that's a difference of delivery. Okay.
So the certainty came from that video you shot here, and the depth with which you interpreted and explained those scans, and I was like, boom. Like, and for the audience, it was like, I see this here. This makes total sense based on the seizures and what's going on with Sage. You pointed it out. There's transitional zones here. You need to adjust her this way in this order. Go seated for this one. Like the depth of analysis you were able to do, and like you said, at a distance from across the world, just from a scan and some videos of her cruising around. I was like, boom, this the depth is the of being progression of chiropractic, sure. And I want to hop on this train.
Oh, I love it, brother. Because the depth of analysis, not just looking at the scan, but being able to relate it to the subluxation patterns and then that patient's life, right? And I think that's, unfortunately, we learn most of these things. We learn them in individual vacuums. Here's your class on scan interpretation. Here's your class on taking a case history. Here's your class on, actually, they're even in departments, right? In psychologists. Here's your department of adjusting. And practice isn't that way. Nothing's in a vacuum, right? You literally have that person's life and in front of you, and you're responsible for making it better. So your job from a communication case history is to get into the weeds and go granular. But nobody teaches us, because if you learn how to do it scripted, there's no depth, right? There's literally a script would be the antithesis of depth, right? So all of us have forgotten to go into a case history and into a patient's life, find depth. So if we're not finding depth there, even if we have x-rays, insight, and how are you going to find the depth there? And it literally is like the wordplay so far in our conversation is depth, right? And that is so what our patients deserve. And it's actually, if we can just kind of like be selfish for a second, it's the most fun to practice with depth, right? The general practice, the scripted practice, it has a lot of fun and a lot of joy because you're meant to be around people and you're adjusting them and they're getting better and you can really build some cool stuff with it. But it definitely lacks depth, you know, to just be an intentional broken record. Okay, so step one was certainty, conviction, clarity, catches, freaking fire, okay? Step two, what do you do with that? What changed within the practice first? Or second.
So the next step was obviously purchase a scanner and start to, I did my best to pump the brakes and like just kind of, the next step was pitching it to the team.
Yeah.
And like through Sage's story, because I can't do it without them.
Good point.
And as we all know, story is such a powerful tool for driving a vision. And so they already knew Sage's story. They knew what was going on. So, and many of my team had been with me since Sage was born. So through her story, they're all on board with, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's get
our kids scanned. When's the scanner coming?
Okay. Can I double tap on that for the audience listening in? So I've had the blessing to be in this mentorship guidance part of the team that's helping so many practices go from, the nickname we've given it is kind of pain to peds. And that's if they went all the way, and you guys weren't there at all, spinal care. But even in the middle is the general wellness practice, right? That's still a huge shift to a PX practice at this depth. And those that absolutely thrive, they make that transition with great success, great speed. I actually want to add speed into this. They remember to sell their team on it before their community. Those, brother man, that are like, I can't figure out why I can't make this transition all the way over. It's because they still haven't sold their team. Yeah. They haven't gone inside. Guys, listening, everybody out there, you have to sell your crew, because if you're going to significantly shift the mission and you want the team all in for the mission, you can't just go out to the community. You can't just go out and start branding and marketing to the community and forget to tell your team first. So I love that. What a great answer, Tim, because you're like, hey, I knew what I needed to do as team leader, as visionary of the team. I got to get them on board first before we switch things up outside. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, step 3.
Yeah, so then it was just that was going from the story down to the detail. Okay. And it was like, okay, we got the scanner coming. We put this plan in place, this sort of 90-day plan to get the team up to speed with scanning. But in the meantime, we kind of shuffled my adjusting schedule in a way that, because I just wanted to get started. I wanted to start helping. Lo and behold, I'd made this decision in my head and my heart that this is the direction we were going. So, all these kids started showing up on our door. It was like a switch was flipped. So I was like, I don't have time to wait for the team to know how to do this. So
you took the lead.
Yeah. I'm and I'm busy.
You're a high volume chiro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we had to do some shuffling. My associates picked up some volume and we created the space for me. I would stay back late. I would, in the middle of the day, meet families to scan them and try to get my tech CAs to observe that as it was happening. In the middle there, we came out here for 2 weeks for Sage's intensive. So I went, number one reason for the trip to the US last year was for Sage.
Heck yeah.
A very close second was for us to do that deep dive into how does a PX practice look.
To see it. And what how better to learn it than as the receiver of the services than just the observer.
Yeah. That was a hard seat to sit in, though, wearing two hats.
Totally.
Oh, so
that is a very nice, gentle way of saying that, brother, man. You guys are incredible.
So there was, observing your awesome team. Crystal and the crew were amazing at letting me video and film and then take that back and just pouring into the team, teaching, helping them. And so, yes, that step 3 was essentially systemizing scans into, we did it in the order of start with new patients only. And then once we had competency in scanning, it was like all existing patients.
Got caught up.
Whenever their next progress assessment came up, they're going to get introduced to scans.
And that's the best strategy.
We kept our community from day one. Like, I have kept our community informed about Sage's story, like literally from the hospital in that first week of her traumatic birth, I was letting our community know.
Which is why, truthfully, like for the point of making sure everybody who wants to move into a pediatric and a family and a nervous system model, we're really getting into the details and the contrast points of your practice before to your practice now. But the one point that the one part that didn't need to change at all is just how much you continually build family, build connection with your community. You've been that kind of chiropractor where they're family to you, you're family to them. So that was awesome. That didn't need to change. That was already what you do. And now you're just doing it in this space. And I think that's another take-home lesson for the listener, because I think a lot of times we need to have this, and it's not wrong. It's just that's something that probably needs to open your understanding. This doctor-patient relationship, like, actually I see people do this with their team too. Like, oh, I can't get too close. I need to keep myself here and them there. You know what? In a family practice especially, it works a whole lot better if you just absolutely lean into that connection and lean into that community. And Dr. Lyle Kocha told me this real early in my career, and I know you've had some great times coaching and learning from him. This has got to be top 5 lessons that I've learned, and it's such a coachism because it's so short and succinct. He said to me one time, your job is to build a community within a community, meaning like your patients, your people are your people. They need to feel you, know you, like be a part of that. And it's amazing when you do that. That's a culture builder, you know, not just for you and your team. Okay. What I want everybody to hear too, I have another phrase that I've kind of been working with lately to share is never get so busy you can't get better. And then I think a lot of times it's like, don't just sometimes you have to just fight to say, I am busy, but I must get better. I must. So you did. You said it very kind of nonchalantly there. You stayed late. You ran scans over lunch. You stayed late to do reported findings and interpret these scans. Like, you couldn't stop seeing volume. You had the patients, you had your family, you had your team and your practice to support. So you couldn't just unplug it. So you went extra. You worked extra hours. Call a spade, right?
Yeah, for a season.
Yeah, for a season.
Like you talk about, you got to know when that season's going to end. So that was, we built out that structure.
90-day plan.
These are the deadlines. This is when the team are going to, this is when we're letting you guys loose.
That's how you do it.
And in that we had an associate leave, all on good terms and everything. And we're just now, replacing that, filling that space. And it's coming around to a point now where, while it has been a wild 8 months and my team has developed a lot of grit in this time, the future looks bright in 25 because the foundations are there and we just got it done. We could have kind of dribbled our way through it and
most people actually go back to where they were because dribbling sucks. Because being caught in the middle, that's purgatory. That's like the worst place to be. When you're doing project management, the worst part, the most exciting part is the first pitch, right? It's the first learning, and the first 50% is freaking glorious and wonderful and it's so exciting. And then from 50 to 80 to 90% of project completion is pure mutiny, man. It's tough. You have to be gritty. You got to persevere.
That's a certain profile in the working genius.
It sure is, dude. That tenacity, man. You got to have a team that has it. They got to have leaders that have it. And most importantly, back to the front end, you have to have a purpose that pulls you across that finish line. It has to be that pure, that important of a purpose. And there is no money making that has enough purpose for that. There is no status achieving that has enough purpose for that. There's just impact making that has enough pull to make this big of a project get freaking done in 6 to 8 months. And And I know done is probably not a term that maybe you would use as you look at the things that are next, but for this part of the conversation, I really think so. So now you guys have that foundation, you have that structure, you have, this is who you are and how you get things. So let me go in right order with that. This is why you are, this is why you do what you do. This is who you are. You have embodied and do embody the PX mission and vision. And now the structure, the systems, the clinical, the care plans, the team, it's all on board. So brother man, what's now? And most importantly, my question is, what's next? What you going for and how you going to get it done?
Yeah, our impact is going to grow as I've got to pour back into the team more, especially the docs. Got 2 new docs, junior docs incoming. So, I can't be everywhere at once. And so the more I can inspire and empower them to have the skill set that's required. So that's the next 3 to 6 months. Awesome. Is just pouring in on my docs mostly, with their scan and tip, their adjusting. We're going to have you out in Oz this year. So yeah, that's a big focus this year. And then for the team, it's probably consolidation. They've learned the skills they need to as tech scan and all of that, and communicating what we do to the community. So for them, it's just consolidate. It's just find some rhythm and routine.
Efficiency, simplicity.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about, because it's a different in your neck of the woods, different in your country is what I mean, with branding and marketing. So now you have this absolute pediatric nervous system conviction and certainty that says everybody's got to find out about this. Yeah. But you're also brilliant.
The website doesn't say it.
No, I know. But you're also brilliantly strategic. So I know you've thought about this. I promise you and Pulse probably are the 2 that have thought about this the most, and most importantly, taken action, in the direction and the amount that you can. What is, because this podcast is going to go to Australia. The Experience Miracles podcast leads in Australia, which is why we need so many more of you docs on the directory over there. I mean, literally number 2 country downloaded, and it's actually pretty close, is Australia, which you know all about because you get a lot of these referrals and leads. Yeah. So what are you doing that's working in the ways that you can, to get the word out into the community? Are you just telling Sage's story and just...
Yeah, honestly, man, right now it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
We get these fired
which is the best
mums,
anyways.
like you talk about, who are just so connected in the community. Yeah. And we are, I want to be careful with the words I use here. Yep. I don't want to call it overrun because there's always more, but we are loaded up with kids already and families. But on the back of this Brick Builders this week, and on the kind of foundation of having more docs, more team, more white space available in the coming months, the plan is to start to, we do great on internal referrals and we do great on our paid ads.
Yeah.
What's missing is in the middle. Articles, blogs, socials. I need to bring the website up to
What about workshops and events, live events, and workshops. Big energy there to build that bridge. Yeah.
So I've got Sage's story. After our intensive here, I went and I kind of did my own kind of first Sage's story, Perfect Storm workshop.
Beautiful.
So, on the flight over, Daniel and I mapped out this year with monthly workshops, and so it's filling that space in the middle.
So you're working backwards. You already know, 3 to 6 months, I got to train these docs, and so your strategic plan for 2025. I love this. I love these plans. I love quarterly plans. I love strategic plans. We're just doing it together while talking about it on a podcast. This is like what you and I would have literally talked about with coffee afterward. I would have asked this question so I can help you with it, and now these rock stars get to listen in. So beautiful, because the first quarter or 2 is going to be all about getting the docs dialed in, getting the team fully dialed in, which means you're going to have massive white space. You're going to have open space to now grow. As soon as you have open space, you want to fill open space by cranking marketing, right? So what a perfect need around that spring to summer. I guess and probably different seasons.
I love that too. That's my zone of genius is writing, communicating, and I just haven't had the time to sit down or the bandwidth to do it. So I'm actually quite excited to to fill that space.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. So I told you when we walked into this Hope Dealership's studio that we would go 45 minutes, which is about where I think we are. And awesomely, brother, this has been literally bit by bit, step by step, exactly how to transform your practice, everybody listening from, which is awesome. A general spinal x-ray, scripts, systems, pouring life. I know you. You're pouring life into people. You're moving them into the wellness lifestyle. And that's a great place to be. But if this podcast or your kid or another story, who knows what grabs you and says there's something more, there's more depth. We just literally broke down system by system how to do that. But I want to go into metaphoric overtime here because I also know, especially you guys with New Zealand and Australia, and I just know you've really been involved and around within the chiropractic profession at large. So if we could have an overtime conversation into a much bigger vision, and if we are doing this, working together to build a strategic plan to, I don't know what the right term is, brother, to push, pull, I know exactly what to do, but we got to capture their attention first. So chiropractic, what we can't do is continue to operate with 1988 scientific understanding. We can't continue to operate with 1998 communication of what we do. We can't continue to operate, with the practice model that was from a generation ago. And so what we are obsessed with at PX, and now you are at the tip of the spear with us, is we are pushing to absolutely transform the future. And so we can't stay stuck in the bad habits of the past. And so if you look at the profession, I kind of don't know how to ask my first question because it's a big picture question. But if you look at the profession and the significant subluxations we have that are actually holding us back from seeing more kids, more pregnant families, more, and actually most importantly, just letting people know that we are the nervous system doctors, not the spine doctors. What do you see are some big fish we need to fry collectively together as a profession?
Yeah, we were talking about this.
Sorry, that's not the cleanest question, but
we were talking about this before we got on, and what resonates so much for me with what you and the PX team do is, firstly, it's progressive. We have to move forward. I forget the name of the doc, but I was reading a book called, maybe it's Chiropractic Revealed. And it's got interviews with heaps of different docs over the years. And there's this, well-known doc he's retired now. He may have even passed on in New York. And he had an awesome quote that said something along the lines of the founding fathers of chiropractic didn't give us just a lantern to polish and shine. We have to take it forward. We have to build upon the principles, build upon the foundations they've given us. So, and that just resonates with me so much. And so we live in this world now, this age of information where there are so many nervous system experts, from breathwork instructors to life coaches to other regulated and unregulated health professionals or providers. They're all, claiming this turf that is nervous system regulation. And if we know that that's us, we are the OGs of nervous system regulation. But if we don't put our stake in the ground and keep the real estate that we're losing right now, we'll be left behind and forgotten. And these people who should be, these kids, these families who should be coming to see us and getting the most powerful provision of service that can shift the nervous system to better regulation are going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so coming back to answer the question, we have to be progressive. We have to communicate progressively. We have to create incredible experiences. I've come to learn in the last few years that my mission within chiropractic is to elevate the chiropractic experience. And that's not just for our community and our patients, but it's for our teams. We have to look after our teams better. We have to build beautiful studios and practices and not be that shanty, rickety old building on the corner anymore with a spine model hanging from a broken down sign.
In a part of town you don't want to be in.
We have to create a better experience.
Yeah.
And so for me, PX nails that. You're so organized, it's clean, it's tidy, it's clear, it's concise, it's progressive, it's science-backed, it's
modernized.
It's
crazy.
Modern, it's clean.
Yeah.
And if you that's what I've, even before PX, been seeking to represent through being chiropractic, which is my practice, and every experience that anybody has with, respect to our practice.
Beautiful, brother. You literally, that is why, to the T. And I think I remember these conversations with Christina and Matt and Jackie when we were choosing the name for PX and experience. We came, and it literally is the pediatric experience. And when we started to depict what that meant to us, I know, dude, because we acronym it all the time. We shortened it. And when it is absolutely positively, it was my wife, because she's discernment. That's her working genius, right? So we're on the whiteboard there at PwC, right in that back office where we got, this is before I had PXHQ and everything, obviously, and we're just throwing names up there, and obviously it had to be around pediatric and family, but we wanted it to be short and succinct, literally because we wanted people to not be confused by what we do. So we were even trying to think of how would we shorten this? We were trying to think of the name plus what would its acronym be, and it was pediatric, and then it would be this thing or that thing, whatever else. When experience came around, I think we all stood up, but most importantly, we looked at Christina, who we do know has that art of discernment, and she was like, that is absolutely it, because the experience, and I'll go in this order. I'll go in the order by which we are created to exist. The experience that children are having right now is so limited, so dimmed, so subluxated, so toxic, so fear and victim based, and that is completely unfreaking fair. Not on our watch. We're going to handle it. We have to change the experience. If a child is living that life, the second person who is absolutely pulled into the darkness is the parent. But that is a dismal, unfair, look at the experience we have with our kiddos. Look at your beautiful girls. I hope they're actually up so we can FaceTime them because I miss them. And so they're living that chiropractic life, which means we're experiencing that as their parents, right? And we're parenting Fred Barge life without fear. We're parenting without fear. We're living without fear. So our experience changes as the result of the pediatric experience. And then there's one more. This practice model is holy freaking fun, isn't it? Serving kids, literally living in congruency, full congruency, talking about the nervous system, talking about subluxation, needing nothing else, no supplements, no essential oils, no lasers to do what we do. That is the purest, most incredible, impactful, enjoyable, I'm just going to say it because it rhymes with it and it's true, profitable experience in chiropractic as well. So that is why it's named the Pediatric Experience. And once you find it, you do become obsessed with, yes, our first thing is taking it to our community, but you and I especially are pretty obsessed. And I feel like we're just getting started on taking this to the profession, because otherwise we're just going to regurgitate 1988, because there's a whole bunch of seminars, there's a whole bunch of coaches, there's a whole bunch of scripts that are really all the same thing. And those practice models, I'll shut up after this. I remember, I know for sure, Tim, that the reason I'm so excited to experience this myself as a chiropractor and then deliver it to so many through PX training and membership and everything is I also very much remember the disappointment I had early on in my career, where I would go to CalJam, I would take these pediatric seminars with my certification, I would go to all these events, and I've always been like you. I will go to them to learn from them. I'm not just going to take notes. I am literally going to stalk success. And so I just remember disappointment after disappointment, where from the stage, they were the nervous system guy. They were the subluxation, principled family practice gal. They just portrayed this model of success and congruency and principled and nervous system and kids and families and pregnant moms. And I would go shadow, and the fake plants had died. Inside these practices. I think, it broke my heart, and I just had to change it. I don't even remember consciously thinking back then this has to change, but I do remember thinking this has to change.
There was a quote that did the rounds, and I'm probably going to step on some toes here, and I feel it needs to be said. There was a quote that did the rounds through COVID, and it was something along the lines of, hard times create hard men or women. Hard men or women create good times or easy times. Easy times create soft men or women. And so the cycle continues. And I believe that we are in a hard time living in the hangover of the good times that the generation of chiropractors before us had. They had it sweet. We've heard the stories of the Mercedes 80s and screenings where you'd easily sign up 100 people down at the local mall on a Saturday morning.
They got hooked.
And scare care. And I don't know, maybe the stories aren't true, but in my experience, we are living in the hangover of that. And it's our job to create better times in the future for humanity, for our communities, but also for our teams and for chiropractic and the experience within the profession.
Nailed it. Because this is also, let's just call a spade, because when you are wildly successful in the impact and the transformation you deliver to the community, you get paid according to that. You literally get paid according to that. So this is also, like, if we want to put the blinders on and just talk business for this last tiny little bit, it's not even close. And I love business. I have studied it. I had some great experiences and some great mentors, and we've gotten pretty dialed in with it. If I were to choose by business metrics alone, which practice model I'm going whole hog after and going all in, it's this one. And the second choice isn't even close because of the competition, the convolution, the high overhead, you lose your heart and you lose your soul too. Like, let's just call it how it is, right? May step on some toes too, but no chiropractor went in to school all the way through it with a purpose and being like, I cannot wait to wave that shockwave wand over your degenerated knee. This will be the existence that will change my life. Nobody did that. They didn't. It's, so, all right. Well, but the truth is chiropractic internally, everybody's like, oh, we circled the way. You know what? Let's stop worrying about that. Let's just haul forward on purpose, conviction, clarity. So, and you brought it up, and what I've never forgotten is when I was studying the history of B.J. Palmer, who at the time when they were trying to take chiropractic down, he knew his best defense was offense. So he bought, I'll never forget this because I'm also from Iowa, so I love the history of this. He bought a radio station and he immediately invested money to take the transformer, which is, I think, and I might be butchering that. I'm not a radio technician and engineer, but he literally 5x'd how far it could reach, right? Like literally just, so it could go from California to Canada, as he wrote about it at that time. Because he knew that the number one thing to change the world is to get the message out there. And and then it was called, WOC, right? And let's not get it twisted. Every single lecture was about subluxation in the nervous system. I promise you that. People are like, oh, I can't talk about this all the time. I bet you he saddled up to that microphone every single night and was like, I got a story to tell you. And it's the same story as last night. It's the same story as tomorrow night. And look what he did. He put us on the frickin' map. So awesome, man. What a great conversation. Everybody listening in, this one has really two parts to it. It has how do you take your practice, which, by the way, like Tim perfectly stated, like so much beauty in it, so much success in it, so much fun in it, but there is more. The shirts yesterday made for more, right? That's what we had on the hoodies at the Brick Builders event. So if you feel that within your pediatric and family practice, within your purpose as a chiropractor, and just being able to bring this nervous system model to families, if you feel like there's more, Tim literally broke it down step by step strategically how him and his team, shout out to that team, love your crew, love the Bean crew, him and his team made this happen. And then we had a fun little overtime chat about what we can do within chiropractic to elevate the experience that we truly have for ourselves, for our community. So I'm going to leave it with you, brother man. We are obsessed with implementation. We're obsessed with action. So if somebody's listening to this podcast, what do you think? Again, you're a 90-day plan maker with the best of them. What do you think the next best steps are for people after they dig into something like this?
Well, yeah, if it interests you and it strikes a chord, then it's just take action. You got so many resources available. You got so many examples out there of other practices who have followed in your footsteps. It's just start following them, check them out, get along. I know you got events coming up in the next 2 weeks. It's like, come and experience it. Come out to Illinois, come and observe at PWC, follow that. Don't wait. Like that's been a superpower of mine, is just making a decision and going with it. Like you say, speed of implementation. So just, take action.
Love you, brother. Thanks for jamming with us, man. This is not the last chat we will have. And then we're having you on the Experience Miracles podcast, too. We'll get the whole crew together to do that. Maybe even have to have the girls do a little introduction, for us on that. So, all right, brother. Thank you, dude. Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.